Monday, April 4th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We're in regular session tonight, and we'll start off with establishing a quorum. All members of council are present tonight. Our next item of business is disposition of the minutes for the regular session held on March 21st, 2022. I could have a motion for their approval.
So moved.
And a second? Okay. We have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the minutes have been approved. Next, we have communications, and I would like to start off with a kind of a combination report communication. On March 24th, the LGBTQ office and the Ohio University Student Senate hosted a town hall meeting at which the mayor was present, Councilmember Spineldas, and also Councilmember McCary had helped organize it. And on that evening, as a separate conversation, I learned of a racist event on the university campus. And then later in the week, heard of a second racist incident. And we sometimes hear the phrase town gown as if they exist separately. But I would assert we are one community, and one act of racial intolerance diminishes us all. And so for those students who have experienced racial or religious acts of intolerance, we want to offer a word of support and affirm that you're a part of the community and the constituency that we are elected to represent. Thank you. Any other communications from other council members? Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I have a few items I want to remind the public about. The city's Environment and Sustainability Commission, in conjunction with the Ohio University Office of Sustainability and the Center for Campus and Community Engagement, has worked with the City of Athens Mayor's Office and administration on Athens Beautification Month projects. And these are projects helping us to beautify our campus and community throughout the month of April. And the first project, or this week on Wednesday morning, interested volunteers can meet at the first floor of Baker Center, outside the first floor of Baker Center at 8:30 a.m. and help the Ohio University Grounds Department beautify campus landscape beds at Maritime Park and the surrounding area. On Friday, April 8th, from 3 to 5 o'clock, volunteers can assist with beautifying the Ohio Eco House grounds, including the organic garden located on the property at 8133 Dairy Lane. And on Saturday, April 9th, from 11 to 1 p.m., volunteers can help clean up the Courier Street Bikeway spur. At the end of Courier Street on the Athens west side is a spur that goes over the Hocking River, and the area is in need of a cleanup. We'd love to have your participation. Anyone who's interested can contact me at Athens City Council or sustainability@ohio.edu, and I can help you get registered or to learn more about those opportunities. Also, I wanted to let the community know that tomorrow, Wednesday night, April 6th at 6 p.m., the Environment and Sustainability Commission will be meeting in this room. Thank you, President Isley.
Thank you. Any other reports or communications from council members? Okay, we'll move on to reports and communications from other elected officials, and I believe we have Josh Thomas representing us as City Audit Treasurer. Yes, Treasurer.
Basically just want to come tonight again to say hello. I think since the last time we met, you all should have received 2 reconciliation reports from January and from February. Just to remind you, if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to let me know. More than anything, I just want to let you know that as I work through March, when we're beginning to work on March now, and Kathy and I were actually talking about this today, that I think what I'm going to try and do also is include a quarterly investment summary to go with that report. So when you get your March, you may see a couple extra pages in there. What I want to just try and do is put together a little summary of the city's investments, where they're at, how much there is, where they're held, what type of investment they are, maybe when they're due, just to give you a little familiarity of where everything is at. And then as we work through the summer, we will have some things that will be coming due, and kind of talk about, you may see some communication too as to what we may be looking to try to do in the future too. Our investments, we do hold some stuff locally. About 40% of our investments are local, and we do want to try and keep some of that there for sure. But just want to give you the heads up that you will be looking, when you get your report, you will see a couple extra pages on there, and that way you'll know what they are.
Great.
That's all I
Great,
have.
thank you. It's good to have all the detail each month, thank you. Okay. Law Director Eliason, any reports? Auditor Hecht? Yes.
Good evening. I thought I would report on tax refunds to let you know where we were as of last Thursday, which was March 31st. As you know, for the last 15 years, we've probably budgeted about $250,000 for refunds every year. We bumped that up to $350,000 for this year, and I've asked for another $200,000. In March, I'll give you the year-to-date totals. We've done 349 refunds, issued for a total of $303,230. 116 were normal refund requests, because we do get those every year, for $74,000, and 233 work from home refund requests totaling $229,000. So basically, the new work from home refund requests have eaten up our original budget and tax refund money. So we still have, because council did go ahead and appropriate another $200,000, we should have just under $250,000, which we probably don't have now. This is April, and the mail was heavy today, and we had quite a stack of refund requests that didn't have an account number, which means they're not in our system. So people who work for an employer who withholds for them, that's their only job, don't have an account in our system. Their taxes are handled through their employer. But when they ask for a refund, then that becomes a personal account that we have to set up for them. So that's where we are already for the next couple weeks, and then we'll have to see how far we get when October extensions happen. So thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Councilmember Swank, yes.
One quick question. In your conversations with Ohio University, I'm assuming you've had some. If you haven't, then this is a moot question. But in your conversations with Ohio University, have they indicated what next school year, fiscal year is going to look like in terms of requiring people to come back to campus?
You mean like starting next fall for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
next school year? No.
I've heard informally this is the new normal,
Yeah.
so,
I do, I talked to
In terms of
someone
working.
whose mother works there, and they had planned on her offices moving and had that all set up, and then COVID hit. And now, because she'll only be coming in once every couple weeks onto campus, they're not going to change their offices because they don't need them, need the newer space. But that's just anecdotal, someone I know who did that. So I would expect it to stay that way. Staying that way for my kids. If you can work from home, then they're going to let them. And they might come in occasionally, like I said, maybe once a week, maybe a couple days a week. But they won't, unless they hit that 20 days a year threshold, they won't have to pay taxes. Yeah, they just, and they're not going to withhold as much. You know, they're going to track them as on their new schedules. So we're not going to get the money in the first place. We won't have to make all these refunds, but we won't have the revenue
Start with.
at all.
so the impact is
Yeah. The net
pretty
loss.
incredible, since 80% of our general revenue fund is derived from income taxes, and it's what, 70 to 80% of that is paid out to salary and fringe.
It is.
So, yeah,
It is.
it's
So
huge.
that's where we are right now. So yeah, but as far as next fall, I have no idea. But I don't think they're expecting that. My impression, they're kind of settling into where they are right now.
Okay, thanks for the question. Mayor Patterson?
Thank you, President Isley. I have a few items to share with council. And on that previous conversation, What I was told at the last meeting that I had with President Sherman is that enrollments look like they're going to be up again this coming year, which is a good sign for the university. But certainly understanding that for those who can work remotely, that they likely will. But instruction, if it was not online pre-pandemic, instruction will go back to in-person instruction at the university, unless, except it was an online course. A couple things to update council on and the public. This weekend, Saturday, is the International Street Fest that'll be taking place with International Week coming at us. That there will be a parade that will be at 11 a.m. There will also be the Sandlot Parade that's taking place that same morning. That'll be at 10 a.m. It'll be rather interesting. I'm glad that they're an hour apart because one is going to be going in one direction and one's going in the other direction. So, although it would be, I don't know. I'll keep those comments to myself. Another event that's taking place this week is this Thursday is the Student Expo at Ohio University. I'll be judging. I always enjoy judging at that particular event just to see what our amazing students are doing when it comes to research. Another reminder for everybody is that we have new surveillance cameras in the parking garage on all floors of the parking garage, and they are live streamed into the police department to where dispatch is able to see them in real time, and we have been apprehending and charging individuals for defacing government property, i.e. graffiti. There was a comment that was basically, I thought it was okay to paint on the upper 6 and lower 6 walls of the parking garage, and no, that is against the law. And people will be cited for that. So just a reminder that we have our brand new cameras. Thank you, council, for passing that ordinance to get the cameras in the parking garage. Boards and commissions. I know President Isley and I were just talking this morning about boards and commissions and the vacancies that we have. Just for the viewing audience, I have 2 positions on the Joint Police Advisory Council, both of which are at-large positions. So, there's no specific, area that we're looking for other than people who are interested in serving on the Joint Police Advisory Council. I also have 1 vacancy right now on the Athens Municipal Arts Commission, to where we're looking for someone to serve on that. I know that the Rec Advisory Board has been vetting candidates for the 3 vacancies on that particular committee, and hopefully I'll be receiving individuals that they have identified who want to serve on the Rec Advisory Board. The last thing I want to share with council is that we had the board meeting for Buckeye Hills Regional Council last Friday. I have a board meeting once a month. And one of the things that they provided to us was a document that I will absolutely make this available to anyone in City Council or to the press if they're interested, but it's the Athens County Broadband Profile. And just a couple notable things for council to ponder over. 52% of households, this is 13,788 households in Athens County, do not have access to the minimum broadband of FCC's 25 down, 3 up. 7,709, or 29% of all the households in Athens County, are below 10.1. If you're living in the digital, living through the digital economy, there's no way you're going to be able to compete in the digital economy if your speeds are at those rates. I know that with the RDOF and with some other things, the $250 million coming from the state to be the gap funding for ISPs coming into areas that are broadband deserts, then that hopefully will be wonderful. But we're looking at 81% of the populated area of Athens County. That's 402 miles. Did not have access to 25.3. To be able to effectively work in the broadband world and on the digital economy, you've got to have symmetrical 100 up and down. And you're hard-pressed finding that speed here in the city of Athens without paying an exorbitant amount of money to have those speeds. So, I'm going to continue to push this rock up the hill to make sure that we can get, better broadband throughout the county and here in the city of Athens. We have a lot of households here in the city of Athens that struggle with 25.3, and it's just not enough. And if you've got 4 people in your house that are operating off of 25.3, good luck. Some of you are here tonight, you know the routine from the pandemic when you've got kids trying to take their classes online. I'm trying to run the city online, and my wife is trying to do her job online, and inevitably one of us is going to have to get pushed off because we just don't have the bandwidth. So anyway, great document. If council would like to have copies of that, I will absolutely make that available to you. It's a great resource from Buckeye Hills as well as the other LDDs throughout our part of the state. Thank you, President Isaac.
Thanks. All right. Councilmember Crowell, yes,
Thank you, President Isley. May I ask a follow-up question for the mayor?
sure.
This is a procedural question. I was made aware of the many events going on this weekend, the back-to-back parades, Mom's Weekend, Athens Marathon, all happening at once. The parade, street closures don't come through council, as we are all aware. It goes through the police department. Is there any, I don't know what the role, the procedure is when they get those requests. Do they try to suggest that to paraders, we received from a concerned business owner about all these things happening at once and the traffic problems that will probably arise. How does the police department decide, yes, you can both have a parade on the same weekend?
Timing is a big issue. The length of the parade is a big issue. The number of paradees, if you will, is an issue. So for the International Street Fest Parade that is basically going from Baker Center up to Howard Square, we'll have approximately 50 people involved in it, so it won't be a very long parade. And it will just take that section of Court and then on to East Union. The Sandlot Parade will actually marshal up down on Morris Avenue and will meander its way all the way, reverse up Court Street, and then turn onto West Union and head towards the ball fields. Longer parade, about 400 participants they are estimating. So to your question, both of those would also have to go through the police department. The police chief or the police department signs off on those parade permits because they have to file for a parade permit. And they'll look at that as well. Like, again, how many participants, how long they're estimating that parade will take to get from point A to point B, and timing. Had this been any closer together, one of them would have had to slip or something, move it to a different time, but it just so happens that they're not going to conflict with each other than fully recognizing the impacts that it's going to have on some of the businesses in the uptown area.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, thanks. All right. Now, okay.
Very
Very
briefly.
quick question, but
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a report, no discussion.
Well,
So
this
I'll
is just, I was reminded of an event when the mayor was talking about events this week. And on Thursday night is the Take Back the Night March. And I wanted to include that in the list of things happening this week. The Take Back the Night is an annual event to take back the night from sexual and domestic violence. Everyone of all genders is encouraged to participate in this event that will focus on survivor experiences. And there are some speakers. The doors open at 6 p.m. and speakers begin at 8, and the march will start at 8:05. And I believe this all starts at Baker Center.
Thanks. Third time's a charm. We'll try for third reading now, ordinances for third reading. The first one is 3522. This is an ordinance approving participation in the Region 10 governance structure under the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding. It's introduced by all members of council. And this particular ordinance is the mechanism by which we're dispersing the settlement proceeds from the opioid settlement. And if I could have a motion and second for approving this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Grace and Ziff. Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second. Do we have any comments or questions from council members? From other elected officials or our audience members? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 3622 is an ordinance granting a special use permit to Leonard and Megan Meyer, the owners at 89 South May Avenue, to allow an air conditioning coil, a sidewalk, and parking in the city's right-of-way in the unmaintained alley to Lincoln Avenue. This is introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 3622.
Second.
Okay. And we have a motion and second.
And this ordinance does exactly what it says in the title. It grants that special use permit to allow property owners on South May Avenue to continue to use a portion of the city right-of-way in an unmaintained alley. And it goes hand in hand with the next ordinance that is for a different property owner, but is to coordinate use of that same alley.
Thank you, Councilmember Grace. Any comments or questions from council members, administration, other elected officials, or any members of the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 3722 is an ordinance granting a special use permit to Montel LLC, the owner of 70 South Shannon Avenue, for use of the city's right-of-way to allow access via the unmaintained alley to Lincoln Avenue, and is introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 3722.
Second.
And as explained previously, it's a corollary ordinance that's going through on the same area on an alley. Any comments or questions from council members, administration, other elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 3822 is an ordinance authorizing a contract with the Washington County Commissioners and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 3822.
Second.
This is just going to allow us to partner with Washington County Commissioners for use of jail for housing of prisoners in accordance with the contract.
So we have a motion and second for approval. Any comments or questions from council members, administration, other elected officials, or our audience members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 3922 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title III, Administrative Provisions, Chapter 3.07, Administrative Departments, Boards and Commissions, Section 3.07.42A, Establishment of the Athens Recreation Advisory Board, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
I'd like to make a motion that council approve 03922.
Second?
This particular ordinance changes but one word. It changes the word township to county, which will allow us to recruit for the aforementioned Recreation Advisory Board a broader spectrum of possible members to that board.
Thank you. We have a motion and second for approval. Any comments or questions from council members?
I'll make a comment or question,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Perry.
Thank you. I am aware that the name of this commission is Recreation Advisory Board, and just want to clarify, due to recent conversations, that this is really parks and recreation are the topics of oversight, as opposed to arts, which is dealt with through our Municipal Arts Council. I was wondering if I can get confirmation on that from the mayor.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's easy.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second, so any other comments or questions from other elected officials, other council members, or our audience members? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 4022 is an ordinance amending the 2021 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 04022.
Second.
Thank you, Member Eisner. A number of items in this appropriation ordinance, including $15,000 to the Recreation Fund for new Civic Rec software. Another appropriation to Community Center 271 in the amount of $15,000 for that software. $500 to the Recreation Fund 270 for a grant from the Athens Foundation. $6,000 to the Recreation Fund 270 for Arts West theatrical production this summer. $250,000 to the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, 286 for the Armory Rehab, and $250,000 to Capital Improvements Fund, 580, also for the Armory Rehab. Thank you, President Isley.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 4122 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 422, the 2022 appropriation ordinance 15021, and authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers. And this is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 04122.
Second.
Thank you, Member Eisner. This is an amendment of this. We realized belatedly that we had not included the amounts for appropriation and then the transfer. So this includes $50,000 to the general fund for a transfer to the cemetery fund, as well as $150,000 to the American Rescue Plan Act Fund for a community center transfer. This was amended at first reading on March 7th meeting and is now up for the third reading. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second. Any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 4222 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $140,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued, to pay part of the costs of acquiring new parking meters and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 04222.
Second.
Thank you, Member Ziff. This is, as the title describes, paying our bills for our new parking meters. Thank you, President Isley.
Thank you. Motion and second. Do we have any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We have 5 ordinances for second reading, and during the second reading, what we do is read the title, see if there are any comments or questions, and then unless there's a motion to suspend, we'll just do that for the second reading. Ordinance 4322 is an ordinance authorizing disposal of certain vehicles no longer needed for a municipal purpose. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. And if no comments or questions, we'll move on to 4422. An ordinance amending Ordinance 10221, Athens City Code Title I, General Provisions, Chapter 1.03, Code Fees Established, Solid Waste Recycling and Optional Composting Rates, introduced by Councilmember Swank. And any comments or questions from council members? Okay. Elected officials or our audience? 4522 is an ordinance amending the 2022 staffing levels and pay grades authorized by Ordinance 14122, introduced by Councilmember Crowell. And if no comments or questions, we'll move on to the next one, and that's Ordinance 4622. This is an ordinance authorizing compensation of greater than 25% through the assigned pay grade for a new hire into the position of Assistant Law Director, Part-Time Prosecutor, introduced by Councilmember Crowell. And if no comments or questions, We will move on to 4722. This is an ordinance accepting a grant from the Klein Penny Educational Fund to Arts West, introduced by Councilmember Crowell. We now have ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 5022, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to accept bids where necessary and enter into contract for replacement of the community center roof. This is project number 353, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. As mentioned, our community center needs a new roof. And as discussed in committee, and as we had a little bit of confusion last week when we were discussing this regarding closing out the Community Center Phase 2 Fund 272. If the auditor doesn't mind speaking to this, I will just say that after a discussion with the auditor, the intention is in fact, to close out this fund. So I believe the best course of action for the auditor's office is to go ahead and have this fund be zeroed out. Is that correct, Auditor?
That is correct. Thank you, Member Crowell. This fund is the levy fund from construction of the community center 20 years ago. There was money that came in above what we needed to pay it off, which happened, I don't know, 6 years ago. But there were also limitations on what that money could be used for. It had to be used for the community center construction and furnishing, as was worded in the ordinance for the levy. So we've been actually kind of hanging on to this money for a new roof. We knew it would come. So the thing is, there's no point in leaving $5,000 in there because there's no more money coming in there except for interest. And so, yes, I've asked council to change the numbers just a little bit to take into account any interest that we will have to post to that account before this project can happen and the bills can be paid, which will be less than $5,000, but that way we will spend up all of that money, and then we'll use the 273 money for the difference.
Thank you, Auditor. So Section 1 of this ordinance really does what the title says, which is authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids for this project of the community center roof. Section 2 is the appropriation pieces necessary, and I'll go ahead and read those amounts. $5,000 to the Community Center Phase 2 Fund 272, and $115,900 to the APR Income Tax Fund 273, and increasing total appropriations by said amounts. In Section 3, the Service Safety Director is authorized to expend up to $432,900 as follows: $317,000 from the Community Center Phase 2 Fund, and $115,900 from the APR Income Tax Fund. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Councilmember Swank.
2 questions. Is this a project that we anticipate being able to complete in 2022?
It's a good question. I don't know if the city administration has a response. Well, this will be the community center roof this year, Mayor?
I don't have the intel on that, Councilmember Swank. I can find out, if it is anticipated for this year. A lot's going to depend on the bidding process as to who picks it up. It'd be great if we could.
Yeah, and the second part related to that, this figure that we are reading for the first time today, does this include the solar component of the roof?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
The mounting brackets
Right.
for the solar panels.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councilmember Spielness.
Thank you. When we discussed this in committee, one of the questions I had was, how many years is this roof for this price going to be for? A 25-year roof, a 40-year roof? There's a difference, and I'm hoping to get some clarity on that.
Yeah, I don't have that information. Director Stone didn't share that with me before he left to go through training, so I'll
Please.
reach out and get that information for you as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then we'll move on to Ordinance 5122. This is an ordinance approving a memorandum of understanding with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, known as AFSCME, Local 24031, Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO Union. This is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. This is an MOU necessary with this union due to some changes being proposed to City Council regarding our meter enforcement of our parking enforcement officers and what previously was a meter repairer position. Since these are union jobs, the changes that we discussed at committee to make the parking enforcement officers grade A5 instead of A4, and then also having the repairer role be part of that parking enforcement officer position. Previously, we had a single person do those repairs, which were mostly repairing the old type of meter. Now we have the new type of meter, which is a very different repair job. So this is the MOU with the union to make that official. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, if none, we'll move on to 5222. This is an ordinance amending the 2022 staffing levels and pay grades authorized by Ordinance 14121, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. This is related to the previous ordinance and the MOU with the union, and then changing our staffing levels and pay grades within the city to reflect these changes to the parking enforcement officers and elimination of the meter repairer. There is an additional item that council members will see in the attachment about city groundskeepers, removing the role of groundskeeper from the city pay band and removing the assistant groundskeeper entirely. And that's all I have. Thank you, President Isley.
Thank you. If no comments or questions on 5222, we'll move on to Ordinance 5322. This is an ordinance amending the 2022 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. There are a number of appropriations here that I will go through. The first one is $6,000 to the general fund, other administrative, 101.120, transaction code 300 for the Ohio Governor's Imagination Library. And last week at committee, we had a presentation from the executive director of the Athens Public Libraries, Mr. Nick Tepe, about this really great program to get kids reading from the earliest of ages and getting them books sent directly to their homes. This ordinance also has $20,000 to the Street Rehabilitation Fund, 572. As discussed at committee, this is for initial payments for the Ohio Public Works Commission portion of the Stimson Avenue project. These are that's not the big money that we owe, but the first payments to the OPWC. And then finally, the last item is a $1,000 appropriation to the Stormwater Fund necessary for postage in terms of informing people who are in violation of our stormwater permit. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
A procedural question.
Yes, Councilmember
Yes,
Crowell.
well, if an amendment were to be offered for one of those three items, and the amendment was approved, would the ordinance be at first reading, and then 2 weeks from now, second reading? In other words, this
Correct.
would not delay the process?
Correct.
Okay. Reason I ask that is I think we all heard last week an excellent presentation about the Imagination Library. And it was referenced earlier this evening by the mayor and quite succinctly. the challenges that so many of the people in our community have with broadband and the effect that has on their education. The Imagination Library has been around for a long time and is a great program. I would ask Member Crowell if you would consider changing this, not the dollar amount, but to a 3-year commitment so that the folks at the Imagination Library, as administered by the Athens Foundation and our library, don't have to come back to this group every year.
So I believe Member Swank, if I may speak, Member Swank can offer the amendment himself, right? And then it can be voted upon.
Correct,
It
and
doesn't
then you
have to
could
be
see if
me.
there's a second.
I'd be happy to speak to the amendment if you would like me to speak to.
Okay.
What would be in order? Have to have the amendment?
You have to
yeah.
propose the amendment and
Yes.
see if there's a second, and then we can have discussion.
I would move that we amend Section 1, the part dealing with the Imagination Library, for a 3-year period commencing in 2022.
Second.
So there's a motion and second for amending this to make it a 3-year commitment. Now we can have discussion. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. Member Swank, I appreciate your support of this project, and I understand why you would want to amend it to give it a longer term. I thought about that myself, and I thought about Director Teppe's presentation and how valuable it was, not only for council members. I was not aware of this program before, I believe you were, to hear about this program. And I thought, well, if I'm hearing about it, that means maybe the community's hearing about it too. If we do a 3-year term, we won't hear about this again for 3 years. And so it won't be on council's agenda. We won't have a presentation unless we request it. And the public who may want to learn about this program, who may be having babies as we speak and want to get them in the program, won't have that. We won't have that marketing opportunity. So I have no problems, and also just being a, very fiscally minded of seeing this and discussing this every year, not only so we can appreciate what the program is, but that we can spread the word, hopefully, to further to more people. And I have no problem doing this once a year for this program. So that's my opinion on the
I think we can
amendment.
also offer that community food initiatives, when they've come to us in the past, have come to us for an annual appropriation, and they came every year. When there's a multi-year agreement, the two that I know that exist are for the Economic Development Council and the Athens Convention and Visitors Bureau. Those are the major multi-year approved proposals or projects that we support on a multi-year basis. Other comments or questions? Okay, so if no other.
No, I think
Well,
the
I think-
auditor.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, the mayor and the auditor, thank you.
You go first.
My peripheral vision is going.
That's all right. Yes, I would be opposed to a multi-year contract for this. I think a big difference with the Economic Development Council and the visitor, as you said, is we do, and I know our community benefits overall by this Imagination Library. I've been the recipient when my youngest daughter was in the hospital of books and different things. But anyway, we don't do this, as you said, for CFI, Athens beautification. The city's job is not to underwrite nonprofit endeavors. It's great for us to do this, and we might end up doing this just like we do for beautification every year, CFI, and we do theirs. But as Member Crowell said, it's really better to discuss it every year and decide then, depending on how things go, we might want to change the amounts, and I wouldn't be in favor of this. There are a lot of great programs out there that could be coming to the city and asking us to underwrite them for years on end, and that isn't really what we should be doing. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other people and businesses who are interested in supporting this program, and we should give them a chance to do their part.
Mayor Patterson?
And it's kind of been touched on already, by statute with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, half of our 3% transient guest tax or bed tax goes directly to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So that one, to have a 3-year commitment makes a lot of sense because you know that you have to put that money towards that operation. Initially, the agreement with the Athens County Economic Development Council, it was annual. It was annual for years, and then we transitioned to a 3-year commitment or contract, but it took several years to get there. My final comment is, I think to go 1 year at a time at this point anyway would be prudent because we really have no idea as to what the governor's going to plan to do in terms of that match. The governor could decide, I don't have the money to put towards this match anymore, which will significantly increase the cost for all communities that have used the Imagination Library program. But just more information for council to consider.
Okay, and I'm wondering if I need to mention this then now. I think Law Director Eliason,
We have a motion and a second.
We do, we have a further discussion and a question.
Oh.
Because the clerk of council has let me know that since that's a multi-year commitment, if it potentially would be, if the amendment was approved, that would probably need to be a separate ordinance and just removed from this appropriation ordinance.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So, I think what we have the motion and the second now, we need to approve it or not approve it, and then we move forward with, if it is approved, then we would remove it. I'm a little unclear how that would happen next step.
So we have the motion and second. I think we need to go ahead and vote on that, and then we can.
And then we can decide what we do procedurally with that. Okay, so the motion right now from Councilmember Swank is to approve for 3 years for the $6,000 support for the Imagination Library. All those in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion does not carry. Thank you for the suggestion, Councilmember Swank. And we will move on, and that has been, so the ordinance has been read for the first time and remains as is. Ordinance 5422 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to pay the 2022 membership fee for the Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia, known as ORCA, to provide financial support from the city's transient guest tax for the Bailey's Trail System, along with other recreational activities. And this is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. We've been talking about the membership for a number of years on council and had a very nice presentation last week from Director Powers. And I'll just go ahead and read section 1. The mayor is hereby authorized to pay the 2022 membership fee to the Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia, a council of governments, for funding the Bailey's Trail System along with other recreational activities in the amount of $90,000 from the city's transient guest tax paid into the general fund, provided that the proceeds of such tax are sufficient, legally available, and lawfully appropriated for the purpose. Said authorization shall be contingent upon the same level of financial support by the County of Athens. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council members? Yes, Councilmember Swank.
I think we heard this last week, but I just wanted to verify. Did the county commissioners pay $90,000 this year?
Yes,
Okay,
they
I
did.
thought I heard that, but I wasn't sure. And the second question is in the third line, along with other recreational activities. What does that mean? What could that include?
Mayor Patterson, you're a board member.
I am the chair of the board. What that means is that we can also explore water trails, better utilizing the Hocking River as it runs through the city of Athens or in the county. It could include potentially, rock climbing in some of our areas where we have interesting rock formations that are climbable. So it includes a lot of other things other than just the Bailey Trail System. It's looking at things more holistically when it comes to outdoor recreation.
That's the key word in outdoor pursuits. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, it's been read for the first time, thank you. 5522 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make application and enter into a project agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And this is introduced by Councilmember Carey.
Thank you. This was last discussed March 28th in relation to our desire to fund a project for the construction of tennis and pickleball courts. So here we are looking for a grant opportunity to help with that financial assistance, and the mayor would be hereby authorized to file an application, and if awarded, enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the purpose of acquiring funds through the State of Ohio Nature Works program.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, if none, we will move on to 5622. This is an ordinance authorizing construction of tennis and pickleball courts, project number 350, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Okay, so here we are again talking about the recreation construction project. This would authorize the Safety Service Director to expend up to $328,250 as follows: $278,250 from APR Income Tax Fund 273, and $50,000 from ARPA Fund 286, and this is all for Project 350.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? If none, that's our last ordinance for first reading, and we now have announcements and other business. We will have committees next week, so if people have agenda items, please get them to the clerk of council. Okay.
Transportation.
They will be. Okay, transportation. Okay, good. Any others, please let me know, and then get your, if any other supporting materials needed. Next item is that we have some reappointments to the Community Relations Commission by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you. Switching documents here, excuse me.
And these are actually reappointments for a 3-year term.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and read their names. Laura Black, Lacey Rogers, Rachel Siegel, Rebecca Miller, Riley Beltran, Abigail Ochil, Ramy McCarrow, and John Schmeeding, each for 3-year terms.
Okay, thank you. And you're making a motion to approve?
Yes, I'll make a motion to extend the terms of these Athens Community Relations Commission members.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are reappointed to the commission, and we thank them for their service. It's a valuable commission. We now have an opportunity, oh, and are there any other announcements by council members? Okay. None? Okay. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Yes. And if you could give us your name, your address, and if you represent a group, and we will set the timer for 3 minutes. And the little lights on the lectern will indicate when the 3 minutes are up. There are 3 little lights towards the top right.
Oh, got it.
That goes from green, yellow to red. Okay, thank you.
Simple enough. All right, good evening, council member. My name is Andrew Gudarelli. I live at 44 North McKinley Avenue. I'm at River Park Apartments, and a couple years ago we had recycling when I first moved to River Park. It was no problem. I was easily able to separate the recycle from the trash, put the recycle in the recycle dumpster, and vice versa. One day I woke up and the recycling dumpster was gone. I had no reason why. I tried reaching out to the landlord and never got a response. And ever since, I've not really had the ability to recycle. Some of the people that live where I do take their recycles all the way to campus, but that's sometimes a huge hassle, especially when you're running low on time. And it made me really wonder, why is recycling not only where I live, but as I soon found out through my research, not at a lot of off-campus places throughout the city of Athens. And considering that Athens issued a declaration of climate emergency on February 3rd, 2020, I find it quite concerning that our city does not have universal recycling as a lot of other cities do. I want to draw a comparison to a lot of my family members that live in Seattle, Washington, where not only is recycling there for everybody, but it's actually required for everyone, so businesses and homeowners will actually be punished if they are caught putting recyclables in their trash. It's mostly enforced with the bigger businesses than it is for individuals. But not only is there no additional cost for recycling, it's included in the trash rate there, but specific to apartments and condos, property managers and or building owners manage the accounts for garbage recycling and food and yard stuff, as well as composting in the city of Seattle. I understand that it's hard to compare a city of 800,000 to a small city of 25,000 in Appalachia, but Athens is a city that really prides itself on being environmentally friendly. As I said, we declared the climate emergency. And given that the new trash contract is going to be signed this upcoming summer, from what I believe, I really think it's important that the city finds a way to have universal access to recycling for everybody. And while we're at it, we might as well universal access to composting, which we do have a really good composting program, but I think part of the problem is a lot of people just don't know about it. So I've reached out to a couple of the council members in the past regarding this and had a few conversations, but I would like to be able to work with council going forward and see what the solutions are to this. So I will be sending out some emails to all of the members, and you know, given that the new trash contract is going to be in a few months, I would really appreciate it if the council would try to figure out ways in which we can make sure that everyone in Athens has not only access to recycling, but you know, a place they don't have to walk 20 minutes to do it, because given the climate emergency that we've declared, it's a really important thing going forward for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, and Mayor Patterson, yes.
If I may, I would just encourage you also to reach out to Andy Stone, the Service Safety Director for the city, and Deputy Director Andrew Chicky, because they can certainly assist too with the rethinking of the contract that we have coming up. So it's great.
Okay, yes, Councilmember Swank, yes.
Could we get the speaker's name again, please?
Yeah. My name is Andrew. Common spelling. Last name is Gudarelli. G as in golf. U-I. D as in Delta. A-R-E-L-L-I.
And you're in Ward 4. I would encourage
Yes.
you after this meeting, if you could stop, I would like to get your contact information.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good timing. I've often asked the same question. We don't require it of apartment complexes, yeah. All right. All right, anybody else that wants to speak? All right.
Wow.
And motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:58.